Can you explain the difference for everybody that's watching along, what the difference between AI and generative is?
So this is how I define it. So very simply, because people just say they feel there's a lot of emotions out there right now when someone says AI, but there is an entire continuum of AI, right? So AI can just be an automation in your email that takes, that spam email and puts it in a different folder. It can be as easy as that.
Yep.
Or it can be, it can get gradually more and more complex. So if you're, say, using Lightroom Classic or something, you're doing a search or a filter, not filters like running a filter, but filtering something, that can all be AI. Masking and selections can be AI. So in Lightroom Classic or Lightroom or even Camera Raw, if you say I want to select people, and it finds the person in your image and it makes a mask from it. All of that is AI and can be incredibly helpful. Right. Automation can be incredibly helpful. And then there's generative AI, right? So all of that other AI so far hasn't actually hallucinated and created new pixels. So even if you think clone stamp tool, that's just taking a part of your image and cloning it. Mm-hmm. The healing brush, unless you have with the remove tool the generative AI turned on, that's just looking at your image and saying, oh, there's a texture over here that looks similar to a texture over here. I'm going to go ahead and grab this texture, put it over here, and then blend it in. Yeah. But it's not making up pixels.
Correct.
So the generative AI, I always think of that as that's when we start, or it starts hallucinating pixels and generating content that wasn't there before.
Got it. I like that, hallucinating pixels.
Yeah.
That's
it is
cool
because
thing.
People think, especially at the beginning, that it was taking, an eye from this person and a nose from this person and lips from that person. No, it's an entire machine learning model that has learned from thousands and thousands and millions of images probably. Right. We train from Adobe stock. That's very important because at Adobe we want to make sure that we respect creators' rights. Mm-hmm. And so we are training on photographs, illustrations, videos that we have access to and permission to use.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the generative, I think, is where people really kind of get emotional. All the other stuff is don't get rid of my auto masking.
Right.
That's really beneficial, but generative AI, they get a little.
Yeah, it's a hot topic.
It's
absolutely.
A hot topic.
So that's a really good lead-in to this next question. So from your perspective, and for that being an emotional reaction to what's happening in the technology that's available and coming every day, how do you see professional photographers working and coming alongside this technology to better their careers, to better their businesses, and not being afraid of it, because it's not going to go away. You can't fight it.
It's only going to get better.
It's only going to get better. Mm-hmm. So how do you see, people's being succcll with that?
So for me, generative AI, so I'll stick with generative now.
Yep.
So with generative AI, I'm not, for the most part, I kind of do two kinds of work. So I do the more traditional work where I'm not going to add a moon into something. It's going to be more straight photography. And then I do composites, which are completely fictitious.
Right.
Not generative AI, but I'm compositing multiple images, so that scene and that person or thing was never there to begin with. With my straighter photography, I'm using it to remove things for the most part. So at first I was like, I don't know if I want to use this. I don't know if it's cheating. It's not part of my workflow or my process. But you know what? Then I started looking well, okay, I could do this traditionally using some of the other tools like the clone stamp tool or whatever.
Right.
Or I could do it 5 times as fast using generative AI to remove this bush or this tree, or if you're in nature and you've got this beautiful scene and someone's hat has blown off and you can't access it. I don't think, I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
Other people will. It'll be a continuum. There'll be a lot of discussions, I'm sure, especially with camera clubs, competitions, how much is too much? If I use the healing brush, is it okay? Or the clone stamp tool, but if I use generative AI, is that different?
Right.
So that's all something that's kind of got to be flushed out.
Right, and I didn't even think about it from the competitive side of it. I mean, there's hairs that are going to be split multiple times there, to determine what will be submissible and legal and all the things.
Yeah.
So That's interesting. That's a whole nother conversation that we could have.
Yes,
This
it
the
is, and
competitive side of it.
it's quite an important conversation, especially when you think about the photojournalism that's being done, right? So that's why Adobe's also come out with this content authenticity initiative to try to make sure that people know where the image or what the image. So the goal is, trying to be really brief here, but the goal would be in your camera, it would tag it as, you took this photo, it's a raw file, you bring it into software like Photoshop or Lightroom, it can then track what you do to make sure that you don't use generative AI. You can attach your credentials to it, so I can say, hey, this is my image, and it's in less editable, though there will always be bad actors out there, but it's tamper-resistant metadata within the document, so that information can follow that photograph. So if someone goes online and says, oh, where did this photograph come from? Oh, it came from you, it came from me, and then there's a better trail to see if there's been generative AI done to it or not.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it is.
That's really cool that that's being done because we live in a world where it's sometimes you don't know what's real,
right?
In fake and right. So, so another good lead in. You must have read this before we started or something.
No, just like that.
So with that being said, and all the technology and the capabilities of what is out there, if you don't want to adopt that, can you still thrive in business without the use of these platforms and these efficiencies that are available to you?
Sure, absolutely. It's a continuum, right? So with the generative AI, yes, I believe so. I mean, people have been, their businesses are thriving. It might take them longer to do something, so they might be able to do something more quickly. But at the same time, like with my fine artwork, I did an image recently that is this like giraffe and a warthog in a car speeding across the desert, and the giraffe has this pink scarf. Okay, so I don't own a pink scarf. Certainly I could go out and purchase a pink scarf, and I could lay it out on a white background, and then I could photograph it, and then I could extract it, and then I could put that in my image.
Yep.
Designers have been using stock photography for ages, like for years. They would just go find a pink scarf and do that.
Right.
So I started asking myself, so what is the difference? Like, what's the difference if I photograph this myself and incorporate it? What's the difference between that versus using stock versus using generative AI? So that's going to be a question that artists have to ask themselves. Like, where do they want to fall on that continuum? I had never used stock imagery in my composite work before, so I was like, well, no, it's not right. Yeah. But that might be my process. And now I have used it, and I was like, ooh, that was much faster than going out and purchasing that. I'm creating art, not representing reality with that image. So is that a boundary that you want to cross? I think people have to answer that for themselves.
For sure. And now that door is open for you, it probably creates a whole nother set of imagination that goes with that and what the possibilities are.
It is. So I've used it for ideation quite a bit. Just so that's, instead of just filling a specific area, in Photoshop you can just say generate image and put in a prompt, and it will create things. Now, typically I find I'm more successful because I'm not the best prompter. I'm still learning, but I'll do something small, like just the scarf, or just the car. I won't try to do it all in one. Yeah. But it returns things that I think, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that. That's interesting. So, and I don't know that that's any different than going to a museum and being influenced by other people's work, because we all are influenced by the things that we see. So I'm not sure that this is any different from that.